So we got to talk about what's happening here, because the end of physical games from Sony is bringing about all sorts of opinions, and I wanted to talk about it because now there's this new thing that's popping up from some people, that the reason why physical games is ending is because games are just too expensive. People are spending, these developers and these publishers, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on games, and that's the reason why. It's not anti-consumer, it's not a problem, it's not this, it's because games are so expensive. And that's the reason why that we need to end physical games. This was said by Mr. David Jaffe in a recent video. I have a lot of respect for him. Mr. Jaffe is the creator of God of War. He's done a lot of great things in this industry, and I love the old school God of War games that he did create. God of War 1 was awesome, and it birthed such a great franchise, but I think he's absolutely wrong on this, and we're gonna get into what he has to say. I'm gonna explain why I think he's wrong on this. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So here is David Jaffe's actual words from the video. Quote, "Here's the actual uncomfortable truth. Phasing out physical media is not some evil, greedy, Illuminati, anti-consumer plot. It is just the brutal, unavoidable financial reality of an industry trying to survive when games cost 300 million plus. You can see why third-party publishers are not fighting Sony on this. They're popping champagne." So there's a number of things that are wrong when it comes to what he had to say. I think some stuff that's outright wrong. We do have some developers, I forgot exactly which one, I think it was NIS or it was Nippon Ichi, or there were some developers in Japan for sure that felt that it was a bad idea to do this. And then you also have Mr. Kojima himself that felt that it was really sad and a bad thing that physical is going away. And he's a huge Sony fan. Like, one of the biggest Sony fan developers out there is Mr. Kojima. He loves Sony products. So I'm going to have to say not everybody just loves it. Now, yes, are some of the big publishers like Ubisoft coming out and clinking the champagne and all that? Well, yeah, Ubisoft, they make game key discs on PlayStation and Xbox already where you need the internet. And yes, they want more money. They want that direct access. That's what they want. So it's going to be good for them because they think that the sales aren't going to be worse. They think that they can convert everyone, or they have numbers to where their digital sales are really high. So they're high on that because that means more money for them. Not necessarily better for the consumer, but just more money for them and more control for them when it comes to their games. So I understand why the publishers or the developers would be thinking that way, but it's not universal with everyone. Now, another thing when it comes to the anti-consumer type of thing, it is anti-consumer. Let's just be real here, because you are removing an option that was available there. And not only are you removing an option, but there are certain ties to that option that make things anti-consumer or not. So for example, it's a license on PSN. It's tied to an account. You can't just have 100% access to that game no matter what. If something happens, if your account closes, whatever, hacked, whatever the case is, right? If you don't get that account back, your games are gone. So some people rather have an actual physical game that is not tied to an account, not tied to online, not tied to any of that, to where you can play it without having to rely upon PSN, without having to rely upon your account or anything like that. Now, I get it, digital games are convenient, and yes, they leave them in there, and most people are going to be fine, but there are still some people that would like that consumer protection of having that physical game that's on the disc or on the cart, so when you pop it in, you can play it no matter what happens when it comes to the online world or your account online or anything like that. So that's one thing that I just want to make sure that people understand, because obviously having it tied to an account and all of that, and having it to where you can just have that game and own it, you can sell the game, you can trade the game, you can do what you want with it. That is a form of ownership and consumer rights that is better for many people out there than maybe having digital or simply just having the option. So removing that option is definitely anti-consumer. That's an anti-consumer thing, and it's also a bit of greed too. Now listen, it's a publicly traded company. I understand they have to be greedy in some sense because they have to pay people, they have to pay their shareholders, or shareholders have to be happy with it. So I get that, it's capitalism. So of course there's going to be some greed tied to it, but saying that there's no greed and it's not anti-consumer, it is anti-consumer, and there's definitely greedy things attached to it. But I understand kind of that a little bit. But yeah, there's anti-consumer stuff when it comes to that. Now, another thing here, most games don't cost $300 million to make. I just want to say that. Like, most games don't cost that, and most games don't need that. Who asked for $300 million games? I don't think anybody said yes. Please spend $300 million on games because that is what we want. So I don't understand where that reality comes into play. How is it because ending physical is somehow going to fund the rise of $300 and $400 million games? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me because, once again, most games are nowhere near $300 million to make. So why would ending physical all of a sudden fund all of that? Or that's the reason why they're bleeding money or something? I mean, that's ridiculous in my opinion, because like I said, most games don't cost anywhere near that. And the best sellers are often indie titles or often games like Nintendo titles that don't cost anywhere near that. And there's physical options available. There's a lot of indie developers that put out physical options, and maybe they'll charge a little bit more for the game or something like that. So it makes no sense to say games are costing too much, so we have to end physical. Well, you can just increase the price. If you want to have the digital version of the game cheaper, then you can have the digital version of the game cheaper. If you want to have the physical game of the version more expensive to cover that, then have it more expensive to cover it. I don't understand why one option needs to be removed because you want to overspend on Marvel licenses, or you want to overspend on marketing campaigns, or all this crazy stuff where you want to make, the chin hairs on somebody be so detailed that you can see it from 100 yards away in game. I mean, nobody was asking for all those things. What people are asking for is good graphics and great gameplay. And you don't need $300 million, or you don't need to have the greatest things ever in order for that to happen. Now, don't get me wrong. There are the GTAs of the world, and there are certain games that do have that budget, and people do want some of that. But the large majority of games do not need that type of budget. And once again, even if that was the case, then you can simply charge more for the physical game in these types of ways. So if you wanted a real physical version of Grand Theft Auto 6, they're already charging $100 for the actual real game. Just go ahead and charge $120 if that's the case. If you really need to do that, if that's really a part of what's happening when it comes to the game itself, just go ahead and charge a bit more. So I understand, yes, gaming, it's getting more expensive when it comes to everything, development, salaries, all of that, but that doesn't mean physical games need to go away. If anything, you can charge a bit more, you can do more special editions, you can find ways to cover that, and you can still promote digital. You can still have digital the way that it is. Now, I talked about Nintendo games just a little bit, but look at Nintendo games. Those are some of the best sellers in the industry, from Mario Kart to Pokemon to Zelda to Animal Crossing to Mario, 3D Marios and all that. And I can guarantee you Nintendo is not spending anywhere near $300 million for those games. So for me, when it comes to that, I mean, maybe they should take a cue from Nintendo's business model. People will spend on those type of games. So it's not like everybody needs to sit there and spend that amount of money to be super successful or anything like that. Nintendo has proven way more times than not that you need great ideas, that you need really cool ways of developing. You need to be efficient in how you move teams and how you get things done. Obviously, they're in Japan, so Japan's salary is not as high as a studio in California or a studio here in the US in Texas or something like that, somewhere else. Not as expensive as that, but that's great opportunities to potentially start up development teams in Japan and in other areas that can make games for a bit cheaper when it comes to what you do. There's a lot of talented developers out there, and heck, you're seeing that now with Crimson Desert. That game, massive, huge AAA RPG, and it costs nowhere near $300 million to make. You see what Capcom's doing over there in Japan with Resident Evil. That costs nowhere near $300 million to make. And like I said before, a lot of that is probably just a lot of the marketing budgets and overinflated stuff. I mean, look at God of War Lao Fei. They got the dude from Huey, right? From The Boys in order to do that voice role. I wonder how much that costs to get him to do that. So a lot of this stuff is a little bit of smoke and mirrors when it comes to $300 million, or it's just too expensive. Well, look at who they're hiring in order to get things done, and look at what they're doing. They're trying to just max out so much stuff that's maybe not even that important to how well the game is going to do ultimately. Publishers need to absolutely make smarter decisions about what's important in games. I touched on it a little bit here. You don't need to have every single blade of grass visible. You don't need to have graphics that are going to be so crazy that it's going to take you a year just to get one model done. And I'm exaggerating a little bit here, guys, but you know what I'm saying here. I think a lot of gamers, and if you look at the thread on Twitter with Hunter, because he's the one who posted it. So many people are saying, who asked for this when it comes to those type of games? What are the games that cost that much? Most games don't cost that much. Publishers need to focus on making the gameplay fun. I think at this point, people have realized that the graphics in the games, they can only get so good. There is a law of diminishing returns. Don't get me wrong. It's incredible. The PS6 is coming up, and I'm pretty sure it's going to look awesome. It's going to look like cutscenes that we've seen on PS5. Like, it's going to be so cool when it comes to the fidelity. You're going to get 4K, 120 FPS. You're going to get maybe 8K or something like that. You're going to get awesome stuff. But at the end of the day, that's not what's going to make the game successful. That's not what's going to make the game to where people play it like crazy. Assassin's Creed Shadows has some of the best graphics ever in a game, and it did not sell anywhere near as much as, let's say, Expedition 33, which has a significantly smaller budget, smaller team, smaller price tag, and sold 8 million plus copies. Because the gameplay was something interesting, the story was really cool, they focused on what was important when it comes to the type of game, and they were able to outdo many AAA publishers and developers out there because they were smart about how they spent their money and how they went about their game. Or if you even look at the flops that we've seen, the $300-400 million flops, look at Concord, look at Highguard, look at all the different live service stuff that's been happening that they spend ridiculous amounts of money on, and it ends up just flopping like a Magikarp out there. Look at Dragon Age Veilguard. Look how much money they spent on that game. Also, another flop. So it's one of those things to where they need to just be smarter with it. You've got to make sure that you're doing the right things with your game, and you've got to optimize your development. You do not need $300 million games. You just don't. And there's nothing that anybody can tell me that says, okay, we need those things. That's what's really going to take us to the promised land in gaming, is getting $300, $400, $500 million games. I think most of the games that I've played that are like my favorite games or my game of the year over the last 10 years, none of them have been $300-400 million games. None of them have been the, oh my gosh, we spent so much money on everything. It's been stuff like Metaphor ReFantazio. It's been things like Donkey Kong Bonanza, or it's been Expedition 33. It's been stuff that's been way less expensive when it comes to gaming out there, because they took the gameplay and they made great gameplay strides when it comes to my favorite games and what games have also sold really well and done great. So to me, this industry, it needs a reset. If that's the path that we're going down with PS6 and Xbox Helix, it's going to crash. There's going to be a crash, and there's going to be a problem, because the justification is because we're spending so much, we have to get rid of this. No, physical is an additive. It's a consumer option. If people are buying digital, let them buy digital. But people can also be able to buy physical too. It's not one or the other, in my opinion. So I think I've rambled on enough when it comes to this. What do you guys think about what Mr. Jaffe said and my response here? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, I'll have a full link to Mr. Jaffe's video in the description as well. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this one here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other gaming industry content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.